Welcome, Mr. Michele Geraci. Thank you for accepting our interview request.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
What's your analysis of the outcomes from the 15th BRICS Leaders Summit held in Johannesburg? And it's been suggested that this group presents an alternative to the Western-dominated international system that has the potential to surpass the influence of the G7. So this notion includes decisions like expansion for local trade in local currencies. Do you find these aspirations to be realistic and feasible?
I think the extended BRICS can be seen as an alternative to the G7 or Western-dominated world, let's say. But I also would say that in the view of the BRICS country, it is not in a way an alternative. It could be seen as complementary. From the news I've seen and the discussion I've had, the BRICS do not want to be an hegemonic organization, rather an organization that can cooperate, of course, with its own members, but also with members that are not part of the BRICS, so including countries in the European Union and in the G7. With regards to the currency, I think it is a very difficult project, at least in the short term, because we, of course, need a currency that can be used within those countries. But we do know, of course, that using your own currency creates problem in the balance of payment. So countries that have a trade surplus, let's say China, would not want to have their own currency, the yuan, used, or even if it's part of a basket, used as an alternative. So I think we need to see incremental, small changes in the use of the dollar versus other currency, maybe a basket of these 11 BRICS countries, maybe even trading goods, oil for other goods. That's what maybe Saudi Arabia and Iran can do. But I do not expect a revolution in the use of currency in the international system. Having said that, let's not forget that the BRICS, unlike the G7, also have a bank. So there is actually a little bit more meat inside the organization. It's not just 7 head of states that meet once a year to discuss issues, but the BRICS have an operational arm, which is the bank that finances infrastructure projects.
Thank you very much. Italy joined the Belt and Road Initiative during your previous administration. However, the current government under Meloni is deliberating withdrawal from this project. Some argue that Italy's trade relations with China through the Belt and Road Initiative might not align with the nation's interests. How do you evaluate Italy's 5-year participation in this initiative and the ongoing discussions about the withdrawal?
Well, I think Meloni has made it clear that she has made no decision, that there will be a debate in Parliament, a discussion, and then she will make a decision in the next few weeks, a couple of months. So even if the Italian press has reported the possibility of Italy exiting, at the moment it is just one of the 2 possible scenarios. And Meloni has stressed many times that she has not made that decision, and even ministers of the Italian government making statements, commenting on the Belt and Road, even those statements have no importance because it will only be herself to decide. And she is aware that leaving the Belt and Road will create a major problem on the economic and trade relationship between Italy and China. Many people say that you can exit the Belt and Road and it will be fine, there will be no problem. That's not true. If Italy exits, there will be a big problem. We have a lot of export to China that will be impacted, especially consumer goods, fashion, luxury. China will see this as a betrayal, and the Chinese consumers will see this as a betrayal. And we have seen in China cases of European companies making mistakes that have attracted the negative reaction of the consumers. So I think we have a lot of value at risk in terms of potential exports. even imports, because, for example, during COVID, when we needed masks, we did buy them from China, and we had some kind of a preferential treatment because of the relationship. So even imports we don't need COVID mask anymore, but we need components for our manufacturing industry. They could also be affected. And the third one would be any future cooperation on development of infrastructure in Asia and Africa, which is what the Belt and Road is about. Of course, Italy would not have any preferential treatment, and China would choose to cooperate with companies of other countries. So Italian company would lose also this opportunity.
There are reports that a railway logistics center is being established in the town of Mukacheski within Ukraine's Zakarpattia Oblast to facilitate the export of Ukrainian grain into Italy. And I asked that, could Italy potentially become a new central hub for Ukrainian grain exports to Western nations and other countries?
Well, you see, this thing of grain is very sensitive because the whole discussion is about grain for Africa. However, as you know, almost 97% of the grain that has been exported in the last year did not go to the poorest low-income countries in Africa, but to lower, middle, and even European countries. So we need to be careful. We don't need really grain from Ukraine as much as other southern Central African countries do need. So if this deal is to bring grain to Europe, I think some people will see it as exploitation by European countries of the situation in war. Now, if you instead think that this could be a hub for the grain to first come to Italy or to other European countries and then be re-exported into Africa, that could be maybe seen as a positive, but this is not going to happen. So at the moment, this issue of the hub for grain is really not at the center of the Italian government. Even if they talk about it, in practice, it will not change much for the supply of grain to low-income countries.
Thank you very much. And as my last question, based on the international developments between US and China or US and Russia, the Cold War concept has been started to talk again. So do you agree with the views today? There's a Cold War, and in this respect, the controls are about to enter into a structured economic-based competition.
I think there is a little bit of a Cold War attitude between East and West. There are about, for example, 1,300 Chinese companies have been sanctioned by the United States. There is a lot of tension in the technology. As you know, Huawei, SMIC, and all semiconductors companies in China have been sanctioned by the United States with the intent to slower the development of China technology. But we just saw a few days ago that China, little by little, can actually develop its own domestic technology. And this is very normal. No one was expecting that this tech war would really stop China in the long term. And this is, in a way, good news because it shows that this Cold War in the technology is going to hurt mostly American companies. So we have NVIDIA that has problem. We have Qualcomm that yesterday lost 7% because now China does not need to buy microchips from Qualcomm. They can buy them from their own Shanghai semiconductor company. So I think little by little this is emerging in Washington, and hopefully this will lower tensions. And people in the US and in the West will understand, like we are with the Russian sanctions, we understand that they do not work. They hurt us, and they really don't really hurt the other countries. And I think this then would, hopefully, with the impending election in the United States, it will be a debate in the presidential campaign. Companies are putting pressure, lobbying in Washington to actually, they want to do business with China. So I think the war is not just between East and West, but it's also between the US government and the US companies. They do want different things.